Women account for 85% of consumer purchases. That leaves 15% for the rest of us. Men of Reddit, how are you contributing to that 15%? And what would need to happen to make it 50-50? Story 1. A really big part of my expenses goes towards my children. Food, clothes, all the rest. I am a single dad here. Yes, as I type this, I am wearing a shirt I bought about 15 years ago. I am barely keeping my head above water, but I have all that I need, and I would not trade what I have for anything. Story 2. Well, after I cover all the bills, my wife goes and buys what she, the kids, and I need. She also buys things she and the kids like for personal and entertainment purposes. That's about it. Story 3. Traditionally and historically in the United States, women have been the household finance managers. Men tend to focus on maximizing income, and women tend to focus on managing expenses to maintain a home. Again, this is speaking traditionally. I'm not saying that's always the case, but the women I've lived with were that way. There was always something to replace, a plant to buy, or wall art that needed to be replaced. It was never ending. Life was easier when I let them take care of it and paid them half after they bought whatever it was. So while women make up 85% of consumer purchases, that doesn't mean they make up 85% of end consumers. They just buy the things that everyone in a home enjoys. Story 4. Well, it went to our home, feeding and clothing us, utilities, retirement fund, cars, kids' activities, their college fund. Come to think of it, those little jerks cost me a fortune. Now, I had my playthings, some hunting gear, made my bows and arrows, so minimal cost compared to most. Most of what I spent on myself is tied up in fly fishing gear and gas for travel. Wish I learned how to make my own bamboo rods, would have saved some money. Story 5. I am 22, studying and living at home. 70 to 80% of my income from loans and work goes to savings. The rest is mostly spent on unnecessary but enjoyable fast food, hobby items, and necessary items like phone and travel. Story 6. 85% of consumer goods are things we do not need. It is not 85% of purchases. It is 85% of purchasing decisions. People can decide to purchase it, and actual spending and purchasing could be somewhere in a 50-50 split. I am not referencing data on this point, but I would say women drive more and smaller purchases, while men drive larger but fewer purchases overall. Bills, food, beverages, snacks, dog supplies, tech gadgets, clothes, experiences, guns, ammunition, tools, and other hobbyist equipment. I am a buy once, cry once kind of person. I try to buy good quality. If I need to fix something, I am buying the tools to do it myself. Take a look at the most expensive things we have bought that total $5,000, and you will see a very different picture. I could have a list of 3 to 4 items. My girlfriend could have a list of 20 to 60. See now what I mean? Story 7. And what would need to happen to make it 50-50? Bachelors would need to buy all the things that families buy, like diapers, kids' toys, baby food, juice boxes, and snacks. Bachelors would also need to start buying cosmetics, sexual wellness items, fashion and accessories, and other things that single women buy for themselves. Couples would have to split purchasing between both partners. Story 8. I grew up poor, so I focus on saving and investing as much as possible because, for me, it feels like at any moment I could have nothing at all. I was raised by a single mom, and luckily my sister is handling our mom's retirement because my mom never planned for her future. She always struggled with the present and gave my siblings and me everything she could. This came up in a pleasant conversation where my mom explained to me that her father never taught her or her sister about saving and investing. However, he taught his sons. So my uncles are doing financially well. I wonder if this stems from old gender roles that we're still breaking down. I save and invest as much as possible to ensure I can afford to retire. Story 9. A lot of that discrepancy is just because mothers are traditionally expected to sort stuff out for kids in the household, a holdover from back when the ideal, respectable, well-off woman wasn't busy with her own job. How many times have you been clothes or grocery shopping with your dad? Story 10. I spend money on gas to go to and from work on my 1-hour commute. All the stuff in the house my wife buys because I'd be fine with a TV on a stand and one chair. Our house looks nice though. I also love to buy our 4-year-old stuffed animals and new cups. I just got her a light-up ghost cup from the store, and she loves it. Story 11. The retail industry needs help. Clothing is a classic example. In a department store, the women's clothing department can be over several floors, while the men's department could be a small corner of one floor. The women's shoe section alone is often bigger than the entire men's department. There could be aisles of shoes for women, while the men's shoes can be just a few shelves. It is almost as if the fashion industry thinks men do not wear clothes. It is very frustrating when you are a man trying to buy clothes and seeing the comparison of what women have on offer to them and what men have on offer to them. There is a good example of the 85% to 15% split in practice, if we even get that much. Story 12. Out of necessity? Bills, clothes, food, gas, hygiene products. Out of pure interest? Video games, band merchandise, items for my bass guitar such as strings, picks, and cables, and sometimes junk food. Story 13. Right now, I'm only buying necessary things because I'm trying to save up for a 25% down payment on a house. I do buy myself cool things here and there, like I got a dartboard the other day. But currently, I'm saving at least 40 to 50% of my checks. Story 14. Well, to be honest, I think people buy way too much unnecessary stuff, especially women. We are all slaves to a wasteful consumer society. You don't need to shampoo your hair every day, shower every day, wear lip gloss, have fake nails, manicures, hair extensions, hairspray, makeup, perfumes, nail polish remover, eyeliner, seasonal fashion items, fancy wall decorations, avocado slicers, egg cookers, egg separators, electric can openers, bottled water. This is all nonsense and doesn't make you happier, on the contrary. When I buy things, I think about whether it really has any practical use and whether it truly makes my life more pleasant. Story 15. This is totally wrong. Not even going to go into detail, but just in case you don't know, most women purchase on behalf of their partner. For birthdays, Christmas, weddings, or whatever needs a gift, the woman in 9 out of 10 cases is the one who buys it. Story 16. Other than the basic essentials, food, mortgage, utilities, etc., I mostly just spend money on Kindle books and occasionally on going out. If all consumers were like me, the economy would go into a deep depression. Story 17. I pay all the bills, the mortgage, the insurance, and so on. My wife put on a shirt today I'd never seen in 5 years. It's been in her closet for 5 years. I wear the same 3 in rotation for work. So yes. Story 18. After bills and necessities, my money goes to various things. Clothes, I'm into fashion, books, guitar, piano, recording, music stuff, magic, the Gathering cards, Warhammer miniatures, video games, or just time out with my wife. Story 19. At least for me, my wife and I split the groceries, but I sometimes make smaller trips to grab a couple of things we might need for dinner that night. I buy the occasional 1 to 3 video games a year. I collect model NASCAR cars and Lego sets, but my wife sometimes gets me some of the bigger ones for presents. I basically don't really buy a whole lot for myself. Story 20. I only really spend money on living expenses like my car, housing, food, internet, and a few supplements here and there. I've noticed that if I hold off on buying something I want long enough, I usually end up realizing I don't need it after all. When it comes to clothes, I only buy them so I don't hang out with my wiener exposed, which could cause some trouble. Story 21. With my personal money, it tends to be collecting video games, electronics, books, occasional eating out, archery. This is just out of my personal money. Stuff for the house, including tools, etc., comes from our joint account. Story 22. Let's see. Beer tools deals I find on Marketplace, kayaks, remote control crawlers, and parts, fishing stuff, anything the house needs to continue being a house food that I want, clothes, outdoor gear. Story 23. I've never counted who gets how much of our income, and I'm not going to start now. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. When the money is gone, it's gone. I think it evens out in the end since I have a hobby I will invest some money into from time to time. Story 24. Basically just the necessities. Everything else I'm just replacing as it gets used. The last television I purchased was 3 years ago. The laptop was 2. I haven't bought shoes in a while. I'm due to go shopping for clothes soon. I don't shop often. Story 25. I'd say fewer small, consistent day-to-day purchases and more big chunk spending. Other than grocery store food and bills, I don't spend much on day-to-day living, nothing on clothes, restaurant meals, or fast food. However, in the last 3 months, I have bought a new laptop, a new audio/visual receiver, stereo, and paid for reservations for a couple of upcoming weekend trips. Story 26. If we are talking about retail purchases, the majority of purchases for me come from home repairs, projects, and vehicle maintenance. Then the occasional hat, sneakers, and clothing, but that's few and far between. Story 27. My biggest expense is a jiu-jitsu gym membership. Other than that, my tastes are cheap. Hiking and camping are mostly free, fishing is borderline free once you have the gear, reading is basically free with ebooks in the library, and writing is free. Story 28. Women make up 85% of consumer purchases for 3 major reasons. 1. Women uphold the household while men work to make the money to do so. This means most of what women are buying is actually for a household, not just for themselves. My mother hasn't made even $100 for most of her adult life, yet she spends my father's money like crazy. Women are far more interested in cosmetics than men and thus buy clothing, jewelry, makeup, and other aesthetic things far more frequently than men do. I buy shirts from fun bars that I like to frequent. I know women who replace their entire wardrobe frequently. Ever hear of the pink tax? It wouldn't exist if women just chose to purchase male-branded products instead. Women, in general, make less money and work less than men do, so men tend to foot the bill on everything that isn't a purchase directly for the woman. Dates, gas, hotels, and even some forms of entertainment. The funny thing is that of that 15%, there's probably a decent amount of it that's meant for women. Still, the same could be said vice versa. But what do I buy as a man? Well, last week I got some USB Type-A to USB Type-C cords and charging bricks, so I can charge my phone in more places around the house. I bought a large shark onesie and a large velociraptor onesie because I like being warm in my house. I bought a $2,000 gaming personal computer about a month ago now, and it's great. Essentially, I spend it on me and my random little wants. I save money too. It's always smart to save. I think soon I want to buy a Valve Index setup so I can finally try some virtual reality games, but it feels like a lot of money for something I'll probably only do occasionally. Story 29. Outside of food, rent, gasoline, and car expenses, I've been buying a lot of books lately. I joined a group at work that likes to read, so I've been reading. I bought some figurines, most of them under $9, and I finally got my own desk. I also have a growing collection of Luigi plushies because they were never available to me when I was a child. I love Luigi, and I enjoy going into my office and seeing him look at me. I really identify with him. So, outside of taking care of my household, I get books, the occasional plushie or figurine, and then clothes to wear because you need those. Story 30. Rent, food, childcare, a new video game every month or two. When all bills are paid and my credit card balance is zero, and there isn't anything fun I want to buy for myself, I usually buy maybe $300 of some new clothing. Other than that, not much. I'm far more concerned about taking care of my family while trying to save as much money as possible. The most I can manage is $200 every paycheck, so $400 a month at the most, sometimes only $300 a month, and I make $42 an hour. Food is the largest expense, since my rent is $850 a month. Story 31. My money goes to groceries, vehicle repairs, and home maintenance. A luxury is a new tool to save time or do a better job, a round of golf here or there, and a case of beer. Story 32. Women are often in charge of buying items for the household, children, and gifts for others and are typically expected to buy more self-care items like makeup and clothing. So, while women are definitely guilty of excessive Amazon spending sometimes, I'm sure a lot of the 85% benefits men too. Story 33. Food, beer, tools when I need them, that's about it really. Couldn't care less about fashion, so I only buy clothes when mine are at the end of their life. Don't need the newest phone or care. See zero point in wasting hard-earned money for live, laugh, love stuff plastered on every wall. Most men are pretty simple. Story 34. Is this statistic measuring by the number of items purchased or by the amount of money spent? My most recent trip to Ace Hardware, I bought 15 nuts, 15 bolts, and 30 washers, and all of that was less than $30. I bought other things to raise the price but barely moved the item quantity. Story 35. Aside from basic expenses such as food, I never buy anything new unless I absolutely can't use it anymore. One side of the earbuds stopped working. Still got the other side, why buy a new one? Been using the same watch for 10 years? Well, it's still working, why buy a new one? Been wearing the same shirt for 5 years? Still fits, why buy a new one? Been using the same mechanical pencil since secondary school? I can still write with it, why buy a new one? I think a lot of men will find this relatable, and this is probably the reason for the statistics in question. Story 36. I buy cars and car-related accessories with my money. Seriously, my wife is out there getting her nails and hair done, buying clothes, shoes, and whatever else. I'll buy a pair of jeans when my current ones have too many holes. I'll go into Target, find the pants, and be out of there in 10 minutes. My wife will be in there for hours. Story 37. I think all my personal spending is basically restaurants, bars, and liquor stores, laugh out loud. Other than that, it's all the household expenses, bills, maintenance, etc.